Hello, I'm Stephen Boylan from Easons.com, and I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome former Irish international and Ulster rugby legend Stephen Ferris. The paperback version of his autobiography Man and Ball has just been published. Stephen, thanks for coming in and speaking to us.
Thanks very much for having me in.
Rugby player, obviously, so literally not your natural home. How did you find writing the book Man and Ball?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I never ever thought I would write a book at the age of 30, and I expected my career to last another few years, but everybody has to retire at some stage, and I think my story is a little bit different from every other rugby player out there. I came through the system a lot differently, and I had a good story to tell, and I was approached as soon as I hung up the boots about writing a book, and after a lot of thought and speaking with my publishers and especially family, who were going to be a big part of the book, I decided to give it a go, and it was a great process, and my ghostwriter Patrick McCarry done a fantastic job, and sitting down for hours and hours and going through old stories, and shedding a few tears along the way as well. It was a fantastic process, and then when the book itself was launched, I was really proud of the final product.
And was there many times when you were going through the process you had that, oh my god, I completely forgotten about that?
Yeah, 100%. Like, see, when you start talking about something, then you start remembering about other things. And myself and Patrick come up with the idea of sitting down in blocks of maybe 5 or 6 hours instead of just an hour here and there, because when you start talking about things, then other things start popping into your head. So that's the way we approached it, and it worked out very, very well. Plenty of hours sitting in hotels, rattling through everything, but definitely worthwhile.
Sounds like an intensive process. Speaking of intense, very few people ever get to go through it. What's it like walking out onto an international rugby pitch with 80,000 people kind of in the stadium? Yeah,
it's a feeling that I obviously haven't had in a long time now, but what an experience. I think for me 2009 was a special year. We got to play against France in Croke Park, the opening game of the Six Nations, which we went on to win in the Grand Slam, and there's obviously plenty of that in the book itself, but 80-odd thousand people. It was absolutely electric. But I think the final game in that 2009 away to Wales in the Millennium Stadium, for me, Millennium Stadium is, for atmosphere, is the best stadium in the world. Anyone who'd be there has been there will tell you that, but it's electric, and you take away memories and atmospheres from stadiums around the world. There's certainly memories that I'll take away.
It seems like a strange question, but how conscious are you of the crowd when you're playing? Because I always wonder if you become more conscious of the crowd when they go quiet when somebody's taking a penalty or something like that. I mean, do you kind of block out the sound as the match goes on, or are they always there?
You do. I think in the warm up, when the atmosphere is kind of building, and you maybe see a friendly face, in the crowd, you kind of raise your eyebrows and kind of say hello. But as soon as you run across that whitewash and the whistle blows, you're just in match mode, game mode, and to be honest, everything else is blocked out. Of course, if somebody scores a great try, or you score a try yourself, you can hear the roar of the crowd and the energy from the crowd, and that was something that I loved and certainly miss now. Even nights up at Kingspan Stadium, it was Ravenhill back when I played, fantastic nights there as well. You do miss that, but it's something you just kind of have to block out because you're kind of having to do your job. Obviously some great memories as well with the buzz.
If you get a chance to go onto YouTube, there's a particular clip of a tackle, and if you type in Stephen Ferris and Will Genia, you pick up this chap and you walk him a few yards. How much of that do you remember? Because I know it's a very famous tackle now.
To be honest, I remember a good bit. We weren't supposed to win that game. Australia were massive favourites for it, and we went in and we just gave it a good rattle, and we were doing things in the game that were paying off. And just before half time, I remember well, there was a scrum on the left hand side of the pitch, and I wasn't playing particularly well, but the scrum kind of wheeled, and Cian Healy got man of the match that day, got a great shoulder up, and the ball just kind of sitting there, and he just, as he went to put his hands on it, Owen Redden came in and I just hit him and drove him back. I say 5 yards, but everybody else says 25 yards. It doesn't
take the 25.
But and then all the lads came piling in on top of me, and I was lying on the ground and I was getting squashed by all the bodies on top of Paul O'Connell. Donegal Callahan was on me. He said, "Give it to him, Fed, give it to him, give it to him." And I'm lying there, and Will Genny is around my arm, and we're like this. And I remember it was just the atmosphere in the changing room post game, and it wasn't until the picture messages started coming through on my phone, and the next day of the headlines back home in all the Irish newspapers and UK newspapers as well, of me holding Will Genia up off the ground, and there's a couple of pictures out in the book as well.
It's a fantastic moment. As I say, you retired last June. You've written the book and you got that out. What else have you been up to since then?
Well, I needed to get my head showered and away from the game for a bit, and I went away travelling. Myself and my fiance went away for 4 months, and we just travelled a bit, and it was good to get away from rugby. And it was last Six Nations, so I didn't watch any rugby.
Okay.
And it was good just to get refreshed and come back. When I come back, I was asked to do a lot of games for BBC Northern Ireland for the Ulster Games, working some of the games for Sky, working for Heineken and Lidl, Ladbrokes and Ulster Bank. So yeah, I've been kept busy, especially when in the rugby periods the World Cup was crazy. Yeah. And then a bit of a break, and then the Six Nations has been very busy again. So, but I'm enjoying it. I really am enjoying it. And I was, as soon as I hung up the boots, I was offered jobs to go in and into sales and that kind of thing. I just didn't want to, look at myself in 5-10 years time going, why did it not take 2 or 3 years to kind of enjoy it? Yeah. Enjoy doing things like this and kind of reflecting on my career, instead of just jumping straight into things. And that's what I said to Paul O'Connell as well. If he does have an opportunity to take 6 months away from the game or a year, do it, because it made me really come back fresher and stronger. And so bits and pieces of work, and obviously giving the book a bit of a hit as well. Very good. And while you were travelling, did you manage to read any books? Any recommendations for us? Well, I started Brian O'Driscoll's book when I was on the plane, but when I was on the plane, I was I love my boxing. I'm a massive Carl Frampton fan. So Sugar Ray Leonard. I read his book. But also Patrick McCarry, who's my ghostwriter, he brought out a book called The New Breed, which I also flicked through as well. So yeah, a couple of books. I'm very much into sporting autobiographies. I love to read about people's past and their careers, and Andre Agassi, and fantastic autobiography. So yeah, any sporting autobiography, I'd give it a quick read, and thankfully mine's. I've read it too many times, to be honest. But yeah, it's going great, and hopefully it continues. Okay, final question. Who's going to finish top of the Six Nations table? I hate to say this, but it's going to be England. And I think a Grand Slam if I was going to put a few quid on it. Very good, okay. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us, Stephen. Thanks for having me. Man and Ball is available on Easons.com and all Eason stores, and we'll see you again soon.